The words hung in the quiet chill of the executive office like a heavy sheet of glass, vibrating with an unspoken finality that made the air feel thin and hard to breathe. "We are going in a different direction," Oliver Henderson from Human Resources said, his voice flat and perfectly modulated, his eyes carefully fixed on a spot on the wall somewhere above my head. He cleared his throat, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses with a slow, deliberate finger. "The leadership team believes that fresh perspectives and modern analytical methods will benefit the division moving forward." I stared at him across the wide expanse of the desk, my hands resting flat on the polished mahogany. 18 years of loyalty, of building this market insights department, from a two-person operation in a rented basement to a powerhouse that generated 40% of the firm's total annual revenue, suddenly reduced to a corporate platitude. My voice remained completely steady when I finally spoke, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me crack. "And who exactly is taking over my position?" Oliver cleared his throat again, refusing to meet my eyes. "Chloe Campbell. She started with us last month in market research." The floor seemed to tilt slightly beneath my feet. "The 28-year-old, who has been here for exactly 4 weeks?" "Chloe has an impressive educational background," Oliver corrected, as if that solved everything. "She holds an MBA from a top-tier business school and brings innovative thinking that aligns with our new strategic digital-first vision." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh that made him flinch. "Innovative thinking? I built this division from the ground up, Oliver. Our client retention rate has been 98% for 5 consecutive years. What exactly needs innovation?" "This isn't a performance issue, Walter," he said, sliding a thick blue folder across the desk. "We are transitioning you to a senior advisor role. You will keep your current benefits package. The firm values your institutional knowledge." Institutional knowledge. The words tasted like vinegar. "That is what you call 18 years of personal relationships, handling late-night crises and sacrificing weekends." Oliver's expression remained blank, professional and practiced. "Your new workspace has been prepared. You can move your things today." I walked out of the office and stood for a moment in the corridor, looking at the familiar walls. For nearly 2 decades, I had been the driving force here. I knew every corner, every desk, and every face. The commute the next morning felt different. The autumn air was crisp, and the coffee I bought tasted bitter. I had spent the previous night packing up my desk, taking down the framed photos of my daughter Abigail when she was a toddler, a teenager, and finally a young woman. I left behind a clean desk, but the dust outline where my leadership awards had sat was a silent accusation of the company's betrayal. When I arrived, the brass nameplate reading division director had already been removed from my door. In its place was a blank slot. My new office was in the corner of the open floor, next to the roaring ventilation shafts. It had a metal desk, a single chair, and a view of the adjacent concrete parking structure. It was clear that Donald Bradley and Oliver Henderson wanted me to feel humiliated, hoping I would resign and forfeit any severance or retirement benefits. The first team meeting under the new leadership started at 9. My team, my people, filed into the conference room. Many of them avoided my eyes, their shoulders hunched in collective embarrassment and frustration. They knew what this demotion meant, and they knew it was unjust. Chloe stood at the head of the table, my spot. Her posture was rigid, her smile too bright, trying to project a confidence she did not possess. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice loud and eager. "I am so excited to be leading this amazing team. I have been reviewing our client portfolio and have some thoughts on restructuring our approach. We need to move away from old-fashioned, relationship-based accounts and implement a digital-first, standardized system." She flipped to her first slide, which was filled with colorful charts, animated transitions, and complex buzzwords like hyperlocal synergy and consumer-centric paradigm shift. I watched silently as she stumbled through client names, clearly unfamiliar with their actual business models. "And our work with the Moretti Group needs a major refresh," she announced, pointing to a diagram. "Moretti," I corrected quietly from my seat at the back. "They are very particular about the pronunciation." 20 pairs of eyes swung toward me. Chloe's smile tightened, a flash of irritation crossing her face. "Right. Thanks for that, Walter." As I was saying, she continued, gesturing to a slide deck. I glanced down as my phone vibrated in my pocket. The sender name made my heart skip a beat. Dominic Moretti, the heir to the Moretti business empire and our largest client. First meeting confirmed, the message read. Tuesday at 8 a.m., usual place. Curious about recent changes. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, allowing myself the smallest smile as Chloe fumbled through explaining project timelines she clearly did not understand. My fingers tapped lightly against my thigh, counting down. 3, 2, 1. Excuse me, Brian from Finance interrupted, but doesn't this new timeline conflict with the Moretti quarterly review? Chloe blinked, her confidence wavering. Well, we can adjust. The Moretti review requires 6 weeks of preparation, Alyssa from Analytics added. We always block that time. It has been this way for 7 years. The room grew uncomfortably quiet as Chloe shuffled through her notes, finding nothing. This was only the beginning of the cracks in their new strategic vision. After the meeting, Chloe summoned me to her office, my former office, where she had already replaced my leadership awards with her framed business school certificates. I need your help understanding the Moretti account, she said, panic edging her voice despite her professional posture. They have requested a strategic presentation for next week. I nodded, my expression neutral. The Morettas value tradition. They will expect our standard quarterly review format. But I wanted to show them my new digital-first approach, she said, pulling up a flashy slide deck filled with animated transitions and industry buzzwords. I watched her scroll through it, noting 6 critical errors that would offend our conservative Italian clients. This is certainly innovative, I said carefully. You don't like it, she frowned. It's not about my preferences, it's about what works with this particular client. Her eyes narrowed. CEO Donald Bradley hired me to modernize things, Walter. The company needs fresh energy. The subtext was clear. You were obsolete. I stood up, adjusting my jacket. I understand my role, Chloe. I will assist in any way you request. But remember, the Moretti family values personal loyalty above corporate templates. If you treat them like numbers, they will find someone else who treats them like partners. She turned away, dismissive, her eyes returning to her screen as she typed a response to the CEO. My name is Walter Vance. For 18 years, I had poured my life into building the Regional Market Insights division of Apex Analytics. I had started as a junior analyst, working 70-hour weeks, and climbed to division director through pure determination. I knew every client by name. I remembered their children's birthdays. I solved their problems before they became public disasters. I was 55, with silver hair and lines around my eyes earned through years of corporate battles. My daughter Abigail had grown up watching me work late nights, miss school plays, and postpone vacations. Just until this project wraps up, I would always promise. The projects never stopped, but now she was 21, a smart college student who understood the reality of the business world. The signs of my impending demotion had been subtle at first. CEO Donald Bradley started bringing Chloe to executive lunches without explanation. My meeting invitations disappeared from my calendar. Technical glitches, Ike claimed. Projects I had nurtured were suddenly reassigned to younger team members for fresh perspectives. I should have seen it coming. Donald had been pushing the company toward a younger image. Digital natives understand today's market, he would say during leadership meetings, his eyes sliding past me. But Donald and Oliver had made one massive, catastrophic oversight. They forgot that the core technology powering Apex Analytics did not belong to the company. Years ago, I had developed a proprietary algorithm and consumer predictive model called the Vance Predictive Engine. I held the patent, specifically registered under Federal Patent Law 35 U.S.C., Section 271, and the copyrights under 17 U.S.C., Section 106. Apex Analytics operated under a strictly defined licensing agreement. The agreement granted the firm a non-exclusive license to use the engine, but it contained a critical clause. The license was contingent on my active employment as the director of the division. If I was removed from that role, or if any unauthorized personnel attempted to modify the proprietary source code, the license could be revoked with 30 days' notice. The algorithm was the result of thousands of hours of work. I had coded it in my garage using Python and complex statistical modules, refining it year after year. It processed vast consumer data sets to predict buying behavior with an accuracy rate of 94%, far surpassing any competitor's software. When Apex was struggling 10 years ago, Donald Bradley had begged me to license the engine to the company. It saved the firm from bankruptcy and became our secret weapon. But in his arrogance, Donald had forgotten the terms of the license, assuming that because I was an employee, the intellectual property belonged to the company. He had no idea that my legal counsel had drafted the agreement specifically to protect my ownership, ensuring that the engine remained my personal property. That night at home, I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, a glass of cold water beside me. Abigail found me there at midnight, her face showing concern. "Dad, are you okay?" I looked up at my daughter. "They replaced me," I said, the words still strange. "With Chloe Campbell." Abigail sat next to me. "That is insane. You built that division." "They think they can transition my role and keep using my predictive engine," I said, pointing to the contract document on the screen. I explained how the algorithm analyzed market patterns using custom data points I had collected over 2 decades. It wasn't just code. It was a reflection of 18 years of market intuition translated into software. Without it, the company's reports would be no better than free online templates. Abigail smiled, a look that mirrored my own determination. "They don't know who they are dealing with, Dad. You are the one who holds the cards." "What is Plan B?" I looked at the licensing agreement. Plan B is letting them realize the cost of their choices. We will establish our own consulting firm, Vance Consulting, and offer our clients the actual expertise they pay for. But first, we must let them show their true colors. We will not act out of anger or seek to destroy them. We will simply step back and allow their own incompetence and arrogance to run their course. The market is a harsh judge, Abigail. When they realize they cannot deliver on their promises without your algorithm, the clients will come looking for the person who actually built the system. I nodded, feeling the truth in her words. She was right. In business, the best revenge is creating your own success from their mistakes. We spent the next 3 hours mapping out the initial structure of Vance Consulting, identifying potential office spaces, and drafting a preliminary budget. I went to bed that night, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. The corporate chains were finally beginning to break. I knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in 18 years, I was building something that belonged entirely to me, and no insecure corporate executive could take it away. The next morning, I went back to work early. I sat at my small corner desk, organizing files when Chloe walked in, already looking stressed. She rushed into her office, closed the door, and made a frantic phone call. At precisely 8:15, my phone lit up with a message from Brian in finance. Emergency meeting called. Moretti Group threatening to pull their account after receiving Chloe's new standardized contract proposal. I tucked my phone away and waited. 3 minutes later, CEO Donald Bradley appeared, walking briskly toward Chloe's office. "Where is the Moretti file?" he demanded loudly. I continued quietly sorting papers. By 8:30, Donald emerged from Chloe's office and headed straight for my corner desk. "Walter," he said, his businessman smile firmly in place, "we need your expertise on a sensitive matter." I looked up. "How can I help, Donald? The Moretti situation." "There seems to be a misunderstanding." I stood up and gathered my notebook. "I will be happy to assist." The conference room was incredibly tense. Chloe sat pale-faced, Donald next to her. The speakerphone in the center connected us to Dominic Moretti in Milan. "We have Walter joining us now," Donald announced. "Walter?" Dominic's voice immediately warmed. "Buongiorno, my friend. Finally, someone who understands our business." "Buongiorno, Dominic," I replied, slipping into the Italian pleasantries I knew he valued. "Come sta la famiglia? How is Gia's university experience going?" Dominic laughed. "She loves Oxford. She was just asking about your Abigail." I could feel Chloe staring at me as I navigated the conversation, explaining the miscommunication about his account and assuring him that his preferred custom approach would remain unchanged. By the call's end, Dominic was satisfied. "This is why we trust you, Walter. You understand the value of relationship." After we disconnected, Donald cleared his throat. "Excellent work, Walter. This is exactly why we value you as an advisor." I smiled pleasantly. "Happy to help, Donald. If there is nothing else, I should get back to my transitional duties." As I walked out, I felt Chloe's eyes burning into my back. 2 weeks after my demotion, Chloe called me into her office. "I need the background on the Woodbridge Enterprises account," she said without preamble. "They are refusing to work with anyone but you." I nodded. Helen Woodbridge values consistency. Her company was our first major client. "I know that," Chloe snapped. "What I need is whatever you know that isn't in the file." I considered her for a moment. Helen's son Toby has autism. She schedules all meetings around his therapy appointments on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She prefers data presented visually and values honesty above all else. Chloe scribbled notes. "Why isn't any of this documented? It is personal information shared over 15 years of building trust," I said. That evening, I called Helen Woodbridge from my personal phone. "They have that child running your division?" Helen's voice was incredulous. "Donald has lost his mind." She sent me a proposal that ignored our entire sustainability initiative and asked if I could reschedule our regular meeting because Tuesdays were inconvenient for her. "I'm sorry about that, Helen," I said. "Don't apologize for her, Walter. What is really going on?" "Fresh perspectives, apparently," I replied. Helen snorted. "Cheaper perspectives, you mean? Our contract renewal is next quarter. I hope they don't expect the same terms without you at the helm." I made a non-committal sound, assuring her that I would ensure her business needs were met. The cracks in the company's foundation were expanding rapidly. I told Helen to remain calm and assured her that I would ensure her business needs were met, one way or another. I explained that I was exploring new opportunities and that I would keep her informed of any developments. She listened carefully, and I could hear the relief in her voice. "I trust you, Walter. Wherever you go, Woodbridge Enterprises will follow." That conversation confirmed that my plan was not just viable, it was inevitable. The value of 18 years of trust was a currency that Donald Bradley could never replicate with all his corporate assets. Later that week, I was approached by Julian, a junior software developer in our IT department. He looked nervous, checking over his shoulder before speaking to me. "Walter, Chloe Campbell asked me to write a custom script to modify the access credentials for the Vance predictive engine," he whispered. "She wants to change the database logs so my name isn't associated with the daily runs." I looked at the young developer. "Julian, modifying the database controls of patented software without the owner's permission is a direct violation of federal copyright and patent laws. Doing so could make you personally liable for intellectual property theft. I advise you to document her request in writing and refuse to execute it." Julian went pale, nodding quickly. "Thank you, Walter. I won't do it." Chloe was becoming desperate, and her desperation was making her reckless. I thanked Julian and made a mental note. They were trying to take the technology, which meant my legal defense was now active. I immediately phoned my attorney to prepare the documentation for a potential breach of contract and intellectual property infringement. Every move was being recorded, and my evidence folder was growing thicker by the day. By the 1-month mark of Chloe's leadership, client complaints had doubled. 3 smaller accounts had already announced they were exploring other options. Team morale plummeted as Chloe implemented rigid reporting structures that doubled everyone's administrative workload. Brian from finance cornered me in the break room. "The team is talking, Walter. Alyssa has an interview next week. Can you blame her?" Chloe rejected her analysis methodology and replaced it with a standardized template that ignores the nuances of the data. "The output is useless." I frowned. Alyssa was the best analyst we had. Losing her would be a major blow. "What do you expect me to do, Brian?" I asked. "Something. Anything. You always had a plan. Plans take time, Brian. Sometimes you have to let things develop naturally. We must remain professional and perform our duties, regardless of the leadership." He sighed, shaking his head. "I hope you know what you are doing, Walter. The ship is sinking, and we are all looking for lifeboats." What Brian did not know was that Chloe was desperate. She realized that the Vance predictive engine was the only thing keeping the client reports accurate. But she wanted to remove my name from the system. She ordered one of the junior developers to modify the proprietary source code to bypass my access controls, directly violating 17 U.S.C., Section 106 and 35 U.S.C., Section 271. When the system began throwing fatal errors, she panicked. Donald Bradley, realizing the legal and technical crisis they were facing, tried to slip an intellectual property assignment addendum into my transition paperwork. When I refused to sign it, Donald tried to get his secretary to copy my signature from an old contract onto the document. Alyssa saw this and warned me immediately. Copying a signature to transfer patent rights is a direct violation of California Penal Code Section 470, which is forgery. My lawyer, whom I had put on retainer weeks ago, confirmed that any such forged agreement was void ab initio, completely invalid from the very beginning. We knew this would be the final blow to Donald's plans. Under California law, a document that is forged carries no legal weight, and trying to enforce it only compounds the liability. I instructed my lawyer to prepare a formal declaration outlining the forgery, complete with Alyssa's witness statement, and the metadata from the digital copier that proved the signature was superimposed. I immediately had my legal counsel draft a formal cease and desist letter notifying Apex Analytics that they were in material breach of the licensing agreement due to unauthorized modification of the Vance predictive engine and the attempted forgery. The letter gave them 48 hours to cease all use of my proprietary technology. Meanwhile, the division was in chaos. The modified software was generating completely inaccurate market projections. Chloe had to present the quarterly numbers to the board, and the data was a disaster. She begged me to help her fix the report. I agreed to assist, but I demanded full access to the server logs and pulled Alyssa and Brian to work with me. With the server logs in hand, I had documented proof of the unauthorized code modifications and the exact dates they occurred. The trap was set, and the company was about to walk right into it. I had Alyssa copy all relevant logs to a secure external drive, ensuring that we had hard evidence that could stand up in any court of law. We worked late into the night, preparing the final presentation. It was detailed, mathematically flawless, and absolutely devastating. There would be no hiding from these numbers. The board would see the exact moment the system was compromised and the direct impact it had on client satisfaction and revenue. Chloe's career was about to face a terminal error, and Donald Bradley's leadership would be exposed as a fraud. While we were working, Donald Bradley walked down to my corner desk. He looked tired, his expensive suit wrinkled. "Walter," he said, keeping his voice low, "I know we had our differences, but we need this quarterly report to look good for the board. If you can make the numbers look positive, I'm prepared to offer you 50,000 shares of company stock." I looked at the man who had discarded my 18 years of work without a second thought. "Donald, I only present accurate data. The numbers reflect the current state of the division. If you want the report to look better, you should have managed the clients and the technology with more care." His face darkened. "Don't be difficult, Walter. You are still an employee here." I smiled. "For now, Donald. For now." He walked away, muttering threats. I turned back to the computer, where Alyssa was finalizing the database charts. The trap was set, and the trigger was in my hands. I knew that by presenting the true unvarnished numbers, I was sealing my resignation, but I was also protecting my professional integrity and exposing the systemic incompetence that had taken over the company. The quarterly presentation unfolded in the executive boardroom. Chloe stood before the board members, clicking through the slides Alyssa and I had prepared. The graphs told the story of a division in rapid decline. Client satisfaction had fallen by 37%. Revenue projections showed a steep downward trend. "As you can see," Chloe said, her voice trembling, "we are experiencing some transitional challenges." CEO Donald Bradley looked furious. "Transitional challenges? This is a nosedive, Chloe. What is your plan to reverse this?" She glanced at me. I kept my expression neutral. "Perhaps Walter has some insights, Victoria," a major board member suggested. "The relationships with our key clients have been built over many years," I said. "They value consistency. Rapid changes can be unsettling." Donald closed his laptop. "We need immediate damage control." "Walter, can the Fitzgerald Hotel's account be salvaged?" I paused. "Possibly. Duncan Fitzgerald and I have a strong working relationship." Donald nodded. "Do it today, Walter. We will discuss your role after this." As the meeting ended, Chloe cornered me. "You set me up," she whispered. "That presentation was designed to make me look incompetent." "The presentation showed accurate data, Chloe," I replied. "Nothing more. You made the decision to alter the system, and these are the consequences. Exactly 3 days later, Donald called me into his office. Victoria from the board was there. Walter, thank you for joining us, Donald said. In light of recent events, we would like to reinstate you as division director. Chloe will transition to a supporting role, reporting to you. I settled into the chair. That is a generous offer, Donald. However, I must decline. Donald stared at me. Decline? Why? My trust in this leadership has been irreparably damaged, I said. If my value is only acknowledged during a crisis, I would rather work elsewhere. I pulled a folder from my bag. This is my formal resignation, effective immediately, and I am revoking the license for the Vance predictive engine due to unauthorized modifications and copyright infringement under 17 U.S.C. Section 106. We also have proof of the attempted forgery of my signature, which is a violation of California Penal Code Section 470, rendering any claims of IP ownership void. Ald's face went pale. You can't do this, Walter. The company relies on that engine. You should have thought of that before you demoted me, I said. As of tomorrow, my new firm, Vance Consulting, will be fully operational. And you should know that Alyssa and Brian have also resigned to join me. Victoria looked at Donald, then at me. Walter, your new firm sounds very promising. Perhaps Woodbridge Enterprises and the Moridi Group would be interested in your services. They have already signed contracts with us, I replied. We will be providing them with the customized, relationship-driven analysis they expect using the Vance predictive engine. 3 months later, Vance Consulting occupied a beautiful top-floor office overlooking the river. 12 former teammates had joined us. Our client roster included the Moridi Group, Woodbridge Enterprises, Fitzgerald Hotels, and 8 new major accounts. Chloe Campbell was let go by Apex Analytics within weeks, and Donald Bradley was forced to resign by the board to avoid a shareholder lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty. I sat in my new office, looking at the city skyline. Abigail walked in with 2 cups of coffee. Dad, Fitzgerald Hotels just signed a 3-year contract extension. I smiled, taking the coffee. The best revenge isn't about destroying someone else, I said. It is about building something so successful that their mistakes no longer matter. We had activated Plan B, and the view from this side of the river was magnificent. It was a view of the future we had built, one based on integrity, relationship, and respect. I took a sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through me. We had won, not by fighting dirty, but by standing firm in our value and letting the truth expose the fraud. The office was bustling behind me, a symphony of focused work and collaboration. We were no longer just advisors. We were masters of our own destiny, and nothing could take that away from us. The lessons of the past months had taught me that corporate titles are temporary, but trust and relationships are permanent. We would continue to build our business on those foundations, and I knew we would succeed. The division we left behind at Apex was now just a shell, struggling to process basic templates, while we were charting new territories and helping our partners grow. They chose to follow me because they knew that Vance Consulting stood for quality and trust, whereas Apex had become nothing more than a hollow brand name chasing short-term metrics. It was the ultimate validation of my life's work. I knew that the future would bring new challenges, but we were ready to meet them on our own terms, with our heads held high and our values intact.